Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to Cloud Native Live, where we dive into the code behind Cloud Native. I'm Taylor Dolezal, a senior developer advocate at HashiCorp, where I focus on all things infrastructure, application delivery, and developer experience. Every week, we bring a new set of presenters to showcase how to work with cloud-native technologies. And you might notice where this seems like a rerun, but don't worry about that. Jason closed us off at the end of the year, and we've got him back to kick things off this year. Should be fun. These people will build things, they will break things, and they will answer your questions. Join us Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Today is a little bit later, but the rules were meant to be broken. This week, we have Jason Morgan and Catherine Paganini here to talk with us about the Cloud Native Glossary. This is an official live stream of the Cncf, and as such, it is subject to the Cncf Code of Conduct. Please do not add anything to the chat or questions that would be in violation of the Code of Conduct. Basically, please be excellent to one another and be respectful of all your fellow participants and presenters. With that, I'd love to turn it over to Jason and Catherine to kick off today's presentation. With that, the stage is all yours.
Oh,
all right.
Okay.
Well, hey, folks, thanks so much for joining us. So we're here today to talk to you about actually not technology, or I guess only obliquely about technology, and a little bit about words and what they mean and how we define them. And Catherine, you wanna add anything?
Sure. Yeah, maybe. So yeah, we're going to talk about the Cloud Native Glossary. And so I think we should probably get started about telling you a little bit about what it is and why we created it, right? So basically, it all started a little bit over a year ago when Jason and I launched the Cncf Business Value Subcommittee. So we were both co-chairs there. And the goal of the committee is to create resources that explain why and how cloud native technology has such a big impact on the business, right? And we want to explain that not for people without a technical background. And if you're wondering why, you probably noticed that cloud native has become really mainstream, or is becoming more and more mainstream. More and more people are getting touched by it. Just think of a decision of a company whether to migrate an application to a microservice architecture. That's a huge decision. It can cost millions of dollars, and it's not a decision that is made in the C-suite, not in the IT department. The C-suite is also involved, right? So you have business people now having to make those decisions, and they have to understand what the heck all this cloud native stuff is, right? So they need to get up to speed. But if you look out there, most content is really kind of targeted for technologists, and that makes it really difficult to understand if you don't have a tech background. So that's the why for the Business Value Subcommittee. So when we started, we were thinking, okay, before we can do any of that, right, we have to agree on how we're talking, how we want to talk about terms. Like if we're talking about service mesh, what does it mean, right? And also, we don't want to be explaining all these things all over again, right? Like if we're writing an article about containers, we don't want to be explaining what containers is, and then in the next one, explain it all over again. So we realized, okay, we needed a glossary we can refer to. And so although this all started like this thing we wanted to do before we could do what we actually wanted to do, right? It became so much more. And while we were working on it, we really realized how valuable this resource could be. And so now to the glossary. So the goal is really to explain cloud native concepts, technology, and approaches in very easy and simple terms. So we're using no tech jargon, no buzzwords, trying to use real life examples. Something anyone can relate to, like anyone who uses a smartphone, who uses a laptop, Wi-Fi, all these concepts of something that you can understand, right? And turns out that explaining complex concepts in simple words is really, really hard, right? So it's really easy to fall back to industry terms, right? Like it's because that's how everyone talks about it. So it requires a lot of discipline, and it is really incredibly rewarding too. At least for me, like I have no technical background. So for me, when I started learning about this, I really, really struggled understanding it. For me, like knowing that people now that are in that position have something they can kind of read and is easily and accessible, that makes me really, really proud. So I'm really glad we did this. And yeah, Jason, do you want to add anything to that?
No, not a ton, Catherine. Like, so Catherine nailed it, right? Like we started this business value meeting and we probably had like 20 folks on. And like, whether you're a marketing person, a salesperson, like me, I've been doing like engineering for about 20 years. Well, engineering maybe is a stretch, but I've been doing computer work for about 20 years. And, we didn't agree. We were all using words in different ways. And it's like, oh, wow, this isn't viable. So let's define stuff. And yeah, I hope folks like check it out. So they posted the links now in the chat. Post some links in the chat. There's a website, and that website's powered by Git repo, and we'll talk about all that as we go. But please check it out. Yeah, Taylor. I'm a button presser.
Professional, an expert. Please don't try this at home.
Like George Jetson.
Yeah, it's just hopefully not a big red button in most cases. Awesome. Thank you. It's really helpful to be able to have a glossary and to not gloss over the details and the finer points of these things. I must say, I think that it'd be helpful too for when trying to describe to friends and family members kind of like what you do. Now there's a resource for some of those terms and some of those things. So thank you both so much for really kicking this off and for making this happen. With that, I'd love to ask both of you, can we take a little bit of a tour through the glossary?
Oh yeah, I'd love that. Do you mind if I share a screen?
Not at all.
All right, so I've got my handy dandy laser pointer. Drothamel. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say that name. But and not just for you, but for anyone, right? Like, come check it out. We desperately want help, right? So there's about 50 terms in here in English, and thank you, Daniel. There've been there's about 50 terms in here today in English. And we'd appreciate folks to just review individual definitions. And if you like it or don't like it, leave us a comment. Well, maybe don't leave an issue if you like it, but leave an issue or send a PR if there's things that you think need fixed. Or if you want to define a new term, create an issue, come in here, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But we would absolutely love your help. So without all that talking, if you go to glossary.cncf.io, you'll see this page. So this is our little welcome. Tells you what's going on, how to contribute, some acknowledgments about all the folks that have done work to get us to where we are, and yeah, a little bit else. You can see we've got a style guide, which we can link to at the top eventually. There we go. Style guide, a little how to contribute guide, and then on the left there's definitions. So let's take cloud computing, right? Like, this was I every time I look at a definition, I get like a little bit of like flashback to what it was like to try and define this in the first place. So for every definition, we go through and we talk about what type of thing it is, right? So is it a concept? Is it a technology? Is it, I think we have a couple other things. I don't remember what all the terms are, but there's essentially a couple of categories which your definition may lie in. And then for each definition, right, to hit that target of, I can explain to someone that is not currently, it's not just for business folks, it's anyone that is not currently indoctrinated in the language of cloud native, right? Sal, I will answer that, and I absolutely can't wait to have you help us with this. But for each one, we basically drop it into three categories. What is the thing that we're talking about? What is the intended problem space or the intended problem that we're trying to deal with? And then how does it help? Right? Really simple. What's the thing? What's the problem? What does it do about the problem? Right? And with that, we also are in the midst of building out a bunch of different languages. But I think, Catherine, we're going to talk about that in a bit, right? I don't want to spoil our flow. So this is the essential path. And then you can link to every individual definition, and then you can link to individual sections within the definition. So we all got a little clicky link thing if you want to go to that. That's the technical term, by the way, clicky link thing. And back to you, Taylor.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really like that you have that ability to kind of capture feedback and kind of get a sense of, is there something we can improve here, or is there something that we can get added? One question that I have for you is, why is it open source? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. I mean, like, first of all, we all know that technology is changing really, really fast, right? So having like a few people in charge of updating it would be like a huge burden, first of all. And so by inviting the community to help and that becomes a lot easier. So that's one reason. But more importantly, we really believe that the end result will be a lot better if people collaborate, right? So Jason and I wrote a lot of definitions here, but are these the best definitions? Probably not, right? I mean, we put a lot of thought into it, and we're probably more attached to some than to others, right? As always. But I mean, there are a lot of people out there that that may have a better definition or can help improve the current one, right? So we really want this to be a living thing, something that grows and improves over time. And that's only feasible if you open it up to the community. And so open sourcing it was really like the right approach. Besides, it's also a lot of fun, right? People, you get to work with people all around the world, which is really exciting. And yeah, our community is still small, but we hope we can change that maybe today. And we hope to see it grow and get lots of engaged contributors. So we really welcome everyone on the call today to join, right? Jason, anything you would like to add?
Yeah. So sorry, I just want to say hi. Hi, Simon. No, I don't have a ton to add, right? Like the goal of the business. So we set up this business value committee, and we're like, man, there's a ton of resources that you kind of need as you begin to address your market, whether it's for a project or for a company, right? And what we'd love to do is we'd love to generate, like, as a group around the Cncf, we'd love to generate some content that's just reusable, right? And that changes based on what people want, right? So we've got observability in here, right? And like, I was nervous to define observability, right? It's a property. And like, if you look at it, there's like a ton of folks have a bunch of different definitions for what this is, right? And some people are really passionate. So what we need is we need to be able to welcome changes from folks in the community, right? Like, everyone's going to be sharp on different things. And this can only really be authoritative if the community agrees on the definitions. And as someone that's been in tech for a while is like, well, I think the best way to get a community, crowdsourced set of definitions is put it in Git and go that way. Yeah. So that's all I have to add. Sorry, Taylor. Go ahead.
Awesome. No, that's fantastic, and I think that it is nice to kind of be able to have that oversight from everyone, and just kind of like say, does this look good? I know that there was a lot of I was at KubeCon just at the end of this year here in LA, and I know that was something. I went to one of the Day Zero events and talking about GitOps and just kind of those concerns, and GitOps Con, and a lot of people were thrilled at the fact that there was that formal definition of what is GitOps, because I know that a lot of people had different ideas, and when we're able to all kind of unify and agree on what something means, then that gives it that much more meaning, and then people are able to take that and build with that. So again, the words, the pen is mightier than the sword. These words have a lot of power, and it's helpful to kind of align on those things. So again, thank you. It's really nice to have that ability to connect with people in that way. Awesome. So with that, speaking about people and teams and kind of aligning on language in many cases, why should someone contribute to the glossary, would you say?
Yeah, so just before I see like people asking about Bengali and Urdu and so on, so we're gonna go about that. So I'm really excited because I'm actually more excited about like those more smaller languages, because I think that would be really, really cool to see that all translated. So we're gonna come back to that in a minute. But going back to your questions, why someone should contribute. So first of all, I really think it's really fun and rewarding, right? You're really helping to build something that is useful for a bunch of people. And as I mentioned before, you get to interact with people around the world. And that is especially true for the people who are working on the localization team, because we have like a Slack channel where all the teams can interact as well. It is also a really good way to get started with open source without having to code, right? Like you don't really need to code to do this, and it's still open source. Of course, you do need to understand the concept, right? But like, look at I cannot code, but still I'm part of this project, right? So if you wanted to do this, this is basically your chance. You also really learn a lot because, as I mentioned, like explaining these things in simple words is really, really hard. So you're testing your own language, your own knowledge, right? Like sometimes you think you know something until you have to really break it down. So it's a great, great exercise. And I think there's like a saying, isn't there like a saying about like if the ultimate test of verifying your knowledge is when you're able to explain it to a child or something like that. So basically, that's very similar. Take a complex term and explain it to someone in a way that someone with zero technical knowledge can understand. If you can do that, you really got it, right? Like if you don't, you're probably still kind of missing some little thing. So it's a really, really good exercise to test if you actually know what you think you know.
Yeah, and then to expand. Oh, I'm sorry, Taylor.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, to expand on that, when we talk about creating localized content in the particular native language or the particular language that you are comfortable with, right? Like so much technical content is like biased towards English, and like it's got to be like it's hard in English, right, to operate if you don't have a good understanding of what these terms mean. And like if English isn't your first language, right, like having terms in your language defined by native speakers, who are doing it in a way that's like culturally relevant to you is super valuable. So it's a great way to help. One, if you're contributing English, great, do it. We would love it. And if you can help localize and build definitions for your own language, right, like you're setting up so many other people for success by doing it. So you're doing something good for your community by adding terms here. At least I believe you are.
I think that's something that is kind of, when it comes to localization and adding in all these languages, that's a great point, Jason, is the fact that it has to kind of mean the same thing too, I would imagine, right? It's not like a quick translation where you plug it in and okay, all of the words are now in this native language. It needs to be kind of tuned to capture the essence and the meaning of what is this thing, whether it be a concept or something else. So I think that's a mad respect to the team for being able to kind of think about that and work through that. And I think it's something that not a lot of people realize is that, as you go through that, as you go through those language changes, you need to keep that in mind as well. So really, really interesting. Cool.
One thing I'd add before we go on, we got really lucky early on. Leonardo Murillo, is that how I say his last name, Catherine? So Leonardo Murillo helped us kind of just be like, yo, folks, you need to be sure that you are focused on making it accessible to other languages. And like he set the stage for our ability to, have this site and have all of the glossary terms be, think about localization at the absolute start. And so we're really thankful for the early work that he did to set us on the right path.
That's fantastic. It's there's nothing like measuring twice and being able to cut once in that aspect for sure. I did see one question come in from Almas. So is this glossary related to general knowledge in software development or mostly related to cloud native items? And then I can read the part B of that question as well in a sec.
Yeah, it's cloud native glossary, so we're shooting for cloud native terms, but there's some stuff in here that's not, cloud native specific. Cluster is defined. I think we have bare metal machine defined. So a lot of these things are general, but we're starting with the lexicon of cloud native terms.
Awesome. The next question in the part B of that question was, how friendly is it towards people who are familiar with software development but in different fields or stacks? Example being this person is a back-end developer trying to learn DevOps, Kubernetes, etc.
Yeah, I'd say hopefully it's really friendly, and if it's not, raise an issue, right? So if you get into a term and you're like, this doesn't make any darn sense, raise an issue and let us know, because it ought to be really accessible to you.
Yeah, the goal is that anyone can understand it, right? With no technical background, with different technical background, anyone, right? Because it's like, I mean, it's getting more and more people and companies are adopting it, and more people are really kind of getting in touch with it. So that's the goal. So yeah, as Jason said, if you stumble across something that does not comply with that, which I'm sure there are a few, please do raise an issue or improve it.
And with that, kind of talking about contributions, I did see a comment that came in and said it would be great if we showed how to contribute to in native language on the stream. One of the things, kind of looking at that in a more general sense, one question I have for you is how can people contribute, and what kinds of contributions are you looking for this project?
Yeah, so I can start out. So one, go here. There's like literally like a how to contribute button right at the top, which will talk through the process. The other second best place, and I don't know if you'd be happy to share the link, but if you could reshare the glossary link. So it's cncf/glossary on GitHub. So I can't make that any bigger. But this is mention inclusive naming initiatives. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna finish what I'm saying, and then I'll look at the questions. So here is the Git repo. You can see, well, one, the README talks about how you get started, right? Or how you get started with the actual project. And then the issues here, we've got like an issue template. So as you go in here, you want to raise an issue, and this works from here. So again, if I'm here and I want to report an issue, it brings me to create a new issue right away, and it actually gives it to you on the term. But if you go into an issue and you create a new issue, we've got a bunch of issue templates that specifically talk about what language you're doing. And for all the folks that started talking about, how do I set it up for my particular language if it's not already in here? Well, we've got this one form to initiate a new localization team. And to be clear, audience members, if you want a stream specifically on how to set up a localization team and how to get started with your language, we can set that up. We had a new person come on as maintainer, and they're amazing, and they're helping us do a great job with localization. And I'm scared to say their name because I say it incorrectly too often, but it's Sioko. Is that right, Catherine?
Yeah, I think so.
Right. So he's been incredible, and we can do one specifically on how to get set up. But essentially, what we need is 3 folks per language, three folks that know and trust each other and are able to look over their definitions together, right? And set approval, and then go through the process of initiating a localization team for your language. If you have questions in the Slack, we have a localization channel where you can connect you with like-minded folks who speak the same language as you, and start rolling to get you a localization team in your language. But sorry, I strayed a bit just because I'd seen so much about localization. In general, you're gonna open an issue, or you're gonna look at the particular content. Here under the content tab, we have the various languages by language code. So assuming you're in English, because that's the only one that I contribute to, so when I go in here, I go into English, I pick the particular thing, and then if I wanted to make a change, I could just create my own branch and actually I could create my own branch, and then I could actually make the changes that I want, submit a PR. For every PR, you'll see right. So yeah, so for every PR, right, assuming that this one's a good one, you'll get your little Netlify link, so you can see the actual version of it as you go, so you can see your changes as you go. So it's a fairly like low stress thing. No one's going to yell at you if you do something wrong, right? We're excited to take any contributions you've got. And if you need help, go into the Slack. Thank you, Sal, for posting that. There's a glossary localizations Slack channel on the CNCF Slack. There's a glossary channel, right? If you need help, let us know. We're eager to work with you. And if you've never done anything in Git, we even have some guides to how to get started using Git, so you can do a PR, so you can raise an issue, all that stuff. Did I answer your question, Taylor?
Absolutely. And one thing I saw too, I kind of like that it has that following structure where it's glossary, and I can see glossary localizations, and then glossary localizations, and then the actual languages that are being worked on. So that makes it easier and easier to find as well. Cool, awesome. Really like how you have things set up too with all of the GitHub issues and just trying to, it's clear that you're trying to make that accessible and kind of straightforward in terms of figuring out how to route different requests and things and not only request things, but actually file tickets and get some things added as well. But awesome. Cool. And to everyone who's watching today, if you have any questions, please feel free to throw them in the chat where you're viewing this, and we'll be happy to answer things on that front as well. I did have one other question for you. You're also looking into translating the glossary. How does that work, and how can people kind of join in the effort there? I know we talked a little bit about that, but curious as to if you have a little bit more information on that front.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, like we're super excited to have like people come, and I'm also super excited to see people now in the chat as well, because it's like that is really, really dear to us, and we really want to get this effort going. And so, as Jason already mentioned, right, like there is a lot of content on Cloud Native out there in English, but most of the people in this world are not English native speakers, right? So it's like, I mean, imagine learning Cloud Native concept in a foreign language, especially if it's not like you're not super familiar with it. It's twice or three times as hard, right? So really making the glossary accessible to anyone anywhere is really something that we really want to help do, right? So we do have the glossary set up to have multiple languages, and we have teams. You may have seen already a little bit in the GitHub. We have currently teams working on translating it into Korean, Hindi, Portuguese, Italian, and Spanish, and actually German. They just kind of had like a little group today. So that is really excited. We have 2 volunteers from Nepalese. If anyone interested in Nepalese here, please join. And 5 of these teams have committed to try to get the 10 first terms translated by KubeCon NA in October. And that would be like the first mini versions of the glossary. So yeah, hopefully we can get that going. So yeah, if anyone here is interested, and we saw like some interest here of joining a current glossary localization team or creating a new one, hop on the channel, the glossary localization channel, the channel that Sal shared before. And yeah, just let us know. As Jason mentioned, we are looking for 3 volunteers per language at least. But if you don't have someone, like, I mean, there may be 3 people separately like watching this now and wanting, so hop on the channel and maybe you can find each other, or we can try to connect you if we know anyone. So hop on that channel if you're interested. And it doesn't really matter if your language is spoken by less than 1 million people or 1 billion, right? Like if you have 3 volunteers, and if you're passionate about this, demystifying all these concepts in your native language, you qualify, right? So please join us. And yeah, we're gonna share all the channels again. And I think like we published a blog post yesterday where you can find all the information as well, with which channels to join and so on. Anything you would like to add, Jason? Anything I forgot about?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head, right? We need 3 folks per language, right? Like our goal is not to have Catherine, myself be folks that gate contributions from other languages, right? We want every language group to self-govern, self-define terms, set their own names for the terms. Like I don't want you to go translate abstraction into Italian, right? Like I want whatever the appropriate Italian, view of abstraction is, right? Whatever their term is, right? I'm sure you have an Italian word. I was going to make a joke there, but I decided no. But whatever it is, we want them to be able to use their own wording, right? Not just abstraction, the Italian version, right? But instead, you're set up for it, and in general, just stay out of your way as you get to doing it. And yet, Slack is the best place to get in the loop.
Absolutely agree. I did see one thing come in that said from Sal, consider coordinating this with a CNCF KubeCon hackathon and could potentially get a bunch of valuable localization commits from a group of developers. I agree, and that's a fun thing about open source, right? Is being able to kind of say, hey, I think we could make this better. We could do this thing, and to just kind of throw that out there and see it come together or work towards making it happen. So I agree. I'd really enjoy seeing that. I wasn't aware of the glossary myself until January this year. So really excited to see that this exists. I did have a couple questions as well, kind of around the project and just like the consumption of some of these terms. Do you know if there's a way to like download this to PDF, or I could see it looks like there's fuzzy search on the site. Are there any thoughts around other things in terms of not just localization specifically, but any other ways that might help with accessibility or sharing this around, or kind of any thoughts on some of the technical components or pieces behind the site that y'all have thought of or have any come up?
Yeah, so our first version of the glossary. So we released this originally at KubeCon EU, right? And I think we had 25 terms or 10 terms, whatever it was. And our initial version was a PDF, and we dropped that as quickly as we possibly could because it goes stale fast. It doesn't auto update and stuff. If folks, here, there's actually a link to view and download the PDF version. If you want to get it, I'm not sure that it auto generates, but if this is something, everything in this project, if you have an interest in seeing it be a certain way, please help us and get involved. And we want to get it, as long as we can build something, like with PDFs. If we can build a thing that auto generates a PDF so that it's always current when someone clicks a link, great, right? We'd love to see something like that. And again, I haven't even dug into the PDF function enough to know whether it's a static one or it's a new one every time. But anyway, so
It's static, so
there we go.
and it's old. It still has the 25 first one, so
yeah. So that's an area that could use some improvement, right? So if you have an interest in it, then we'd love to get your help so that we can make it look the way you want it to look. I saw someone asked about the inclusive naming initiative, right? And I actually just Googled it while we were sitting around. And it's another one. So because the definitions are open source, right? If you see some language that is not correct or not appropriate, right? Like, let us know. Well, I can tell you personally in English, Catherine and I will prioritize. And it's like, hey, can we please remove this term and replace it with this one because this one sucks or is bad for some reason? Damn, right? Like, we'd love to get those things fixed. And I saw Matul. Essentially, you need 3 folks who speak the same language, who are interested in developing some terms. And honestly, if you have that, go over here, raise a new issue, and build a new localization team. And when you do it, it gives you this handy dandy checklist of all the stuff you need to do, right? So there's a bunch in there.
If you don't have 3 yet, join the Slack channel. Well, join it anyways, right? But there may be someone there who also wants to join a team and doesn't have their 3 volunteers there yet. So I think like joining the Slack channel if you're interested, for sure. And yeah, like once you have the 3, then you do the issue. But we'll try. I don't know. We cannot promise to connect you with all 3, but we're gonna do whatever we can. Like if we are in the next live stream, like with the Nepalese one, I know they have 2, so so we'll try to let people know, so other people can just join you.
Excellent. I do like again how you've made this really accessible to be able to add things and kind of ask for things and work through adding to this glossary. I think one selfishly I'd love to see at some point in time and love to pitch that at some point is pronunciations for things, and then in specific languages, so we could and maybe for kubectl cuddle control we can have a randomizer to just say one of those at some point in time too.
Yeah, we avoid politics, religion, and pronunciation of kubectl in the class at all costs.
I bought cubecuddle.com, so at some point in time we need to make that something fun. I'll talk with a couple people about that, but awesome. Wonderful. Well, we'd love to open it up to anyone that has any questions. Otherwise, are there any other things that are good to kind of keep in consideration with the glossary, or are there any things that y'all have your minds on accomplishing within this first quarter, or kind of like any immediate concerns that you might want to share or talk about before we start to close things out?
I think the focus for us right now is we feel like we have like the basis there, the foundation. Right now, we really want to find more contributors, right? So that's now, we want it to really kind of grow and improve. So that's our focus now. And then like now building as well, like the localization teams, right? Like we have several teams getting started, but of course nothing is there yet because it's just started. And so I think the focus of the next half year is really getting those mini versions started. And I can't wait to see like the little drop down in the languages and seeing all that. That like, yeah, it's really looking forward to that for sure.
Yeah, no doubt our priority from now until KubeCon is get as many languages as possible to have 10 terms so that up in here or somewhere you can just change the language, right? And go to what's appropriate. That being said, if you're out there and you have some definitions, I would love to get some new definitions or to get some of the existing ones updated, right? But Catherine and I's main focus is helping the localization teams as much as possible. So, Shariar, geez, I'm so sorry. I said your name. I'm almost certainly I said your name wrong. But they're saying that we have 3 members. Now we need to form a team in Slack and then create an issue on GitHub. So what you do is come into the Slack and just just make sure that everyone joins the glossary channel and the glossary localization channel in Slack. And then, go into the glossary and raise a new issue to initiate a new localization team and get started. Like to be clear, right, we're early days and we're building out the localization process. So we'll need help to get, to get the, I don't expect the whole process to be entirely seamless, but we'll do everything we can to get you ready to start writing terms in your own language.
Yeah, and actually there is, if you go in the Slack channel, there is like the meeting notes. Seokon, who is our maintainer who manages the whole process, like he's the person who has done like a lot of the docs localization for Kubernetes. And so he has created all the steps and the processes that we need for the glossary. And so you can read all in there. We're also he's trying to do everything for Korean right now, testing it. So a lot of things may not go through right away. So we're testing that. And once we confirm that it's all working, it's going to be the process. As Jason said, like it's early on. So we still have to do our first one. So Korean is our kind of guinea pig right now. And there are a lot of things that can be done. But you find all that information in there. So it's all work in progress.
And don't let any of the process things stop you, right? Like if you grab a Google Doc and you and the people that you're working with can begin defining terms in a way that makes sense, ideally have that format in general for most of these definitions that includes what it is, problem it addresses, how it helps. That would go a long way. Make sure that you check out the style guide, and an appropriate style guide for your language would be great. But again, you can start doing these definitions yourself, and then as the process moves out, you've got a bunch of them ready to go that y'all can review and submit yourselves, right, as we get going.
Yeah, and just talking to the style, so we haven't updated that for a while, the how to contribute in style guide. So that's my priority in the next 2 weeks or so to update that. So it's going to be there are going to be more details. So check that again. And just as a recommendation, I wouldn't start right away with GitHub, right? Because it's like ideally you're gonna collaborate and like tweak each other's things. So the way we worked on the terms before we added them on GitHub was a Google Doc. It's just like a lot easier because you're gonna be changing and updating, and that's like very cumbersome on Google in GitHub. And once you have something you're happy with, then you can put it on there, because it's a very collaborative process and back and forth in general. So I think GitHub is kind of good when you already have a really good sense of what you want to add, and then you can tweak it from there. But yeah.
Excellent. Awesome. I did see Jonathan mentioned YouTube video Cube Control, the definitive pronunciation guide. Absolutely agree. I'm sure that we'll start to see things drop on that front. And wonderful. Thank you both so much for really just educating us today on the glossary, how to get involved, some of the things that are coming up with it, and really just exciting to see that it's going to continue to kind of change shapes and add definitions and really help people out with understanding and being able to unite and align on what these things mean. Cool. With that, I didn't see too many more questions come in. If they do, I'll be sure to raise them up here as we start to close out. But really would like to turn it over to both of you. Do you have any parting words of wisdom or anything that you would like to say in terms of kind of closing things out here?
Well, I mean, I'll just get started. So for me, it's just like we really, really want people to get involved. So join us. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy having, working with all of you, like all the community, like people from all around the world. I think that's super exciting, right? Like I don't know. So again, it's a lot of fun. It's really rewarding when you see it up and running. If you're localizing it, you're really doing a huge favor to the community and your country. So yeah, I hope you see you all on first on the Slack and then seeing all these GitHub PRs coming in.
I'd add to that, right? If you like the glossary, if you've been to the landscape lately, the Cloud Native landscape, and you've seen this landscape guide button now, so there's a little guide. If you like things like this, where you start to explain some of these terms, you start to make an impact on Cloud Native stuff, but without an exclusive focus on the tech or on coding, right? If these things are interesting to you, come check out the Cncf Business Value Committee. We do some neat stuff. If you have something you're passionate about, or a project that you're interested in doing that isn't necessarily scoped to one thing in the Cncf, or is maybe not so code or tech exclusively focused, we'd love to help you make your idea a reality.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. And thank you, everyone, for joining the latest episode of Cloud Native Live today. It was really great to hear from Jason and Catherine about the Cloud Native Glossary. And, it started undefined, but now I feel a lot more defined in my understanding of what the glossary is looking to do. So thank you both very much. We really love the interaction and questions from everyone in the audience. So thank you so much on that front. Next week, we will be joined by Diego Braga, who will present on From Zero to Production in Less Than 1 Hour with Cradio Platform Ops. With that, thank you for joining us today, and we will see you soon. Thanks, everyone. See you around.